Sundar Pichai woke up early that morning with a quiet sense of purpose. He had a busy day ahead, traveling to another city for an important meeting. Even though he was one of the most famous people in the world, the CEO of a big tech company, Sundar liked to keep his life simple sometimes. He did not want to make a big scene or attract too much attention. So instead of flying first class or private, he chose to fly in economy class on a normal commercial flight. He dressed in comfortable clothes, a plain shirt, and a jacket.
Odd.
Nothing flashy or expensive. Wanted to blend in with other passengers and travel like a regular person. His black hair was neatly combed and he wore his glasses. Carrying a small backpack and a laptop bag, he left his home quietly at the airport. Sundar moved through the crowd with calm steps. People recognized him sometimes, but today he hoped for a peaceful journey. He checked in his luggage quickly and went through security without any problems. As he walked toward the gate, he saw many travelers rushing by with their families, business bags, or holiday luggage. The airport was busy, noisy, and full of life. When the announcement came that boarding had started, Sundar joined the line. He showed his ticket to the staff and found his seat on the plane. It was in the middle of the economy section, surrounded by other passengers. Settled into his seat by the window, buckled his seatbelt, and looked outside at the busy runway. The plane was ready to take off soon. Around him, people were chatting quietly, reading books, or watching on their phones. Some had children with them, and some were alone like Sundar. The flight attendants moved up and down the aisles, preparing to serve the passengers. They smiled politely and helped people with their bags. A young flight attendant soon came toward Sundar. She looked busy but polite. She was new to the job and still learning many things. She carried a tray with meal options and was ready to ask passengers what they wanted to eat. When she reached Sundar, she gave a small smile and asked him loudly, "Sir, would you like chicken or a vegetarian for your meal?" Sundar smiled back and replied softly, "I will have the vegetarian meal, please." He spoke quietly but clearly. The flight attendant nodded and moved on to the next passenger. Sundar watched as the plane started to move slowly toward the runway. The engines made a deep roar and the plane lifted into the sky. He looked out the window and saw the city growing smaller below. The clouds were white and soft, and the sun was shining through them, even though the flight was just a few hours. Sundar liked to use the time to relax a little. He opened his laptop and checked some emails. He wanted to finish a few tasks before his meeting. Mostly, he enjoyed the calm and simple moments on the plane. The young flight attendant continued her work. Moving up and down the aisle, she smiled at passengers and tried to be helpful. She did not know who Sundar was. He did not wear any special badge or clothing that would tell her his identity. To her, he was just another passenger. Sundar thought about how different this moment was from his usual life. At work, many people knew him well. His name was on newspapers and websites. People sent him messages, and many wanted to meet him. But here in the plane, he was just a quiet man, traveling like anyone else. He liked this feeling of being ordinary. It gave him peace. He could think clearly and be himself without any pressure. Sometimes it was important to step away from the busy world and enjoy simple things. As the plane flew higher, Sundar noticed a family sitting nearby. A mother was holding her baby, and a little boy was drawing pictures on a tablet. The sound of the baby laughing made the cabin feel warm and friendly. Sundar smiled to himself, feeling connected to these small moments of life. The flight attendant came back to Sundar with a tray. She carefully placed a plate of food in front of him. It looked fresh and good. Sundar thanked her quietly. She smiled again, but did not say much. She was busy and focused on serving other passengers. Sundar ate his meal slowly, enjoying the taste. It was simple, but good. As he ate, he thought about his journey ahead. The meeting was important for his company, and he wanted to do his best. But right now, he was happy to rest and watch the clouds. Suddenly, a passenger nearby dropped a bag, and the flight attendant quickly moved to help. She showed care and kindness. Sundar noticed her friendly attitude. It reminded him that many people work hard to make travel smooth for others. He felt grateful for the service, even if no one knew who he was. Sometimes the kindness of strangers meant more than fame or success. The flight continued calmly. Outside the window, the sun started to set, painting the sky in orange and pink. Sundar closed his laptop and looked around the cabin.
Ow.
People were reading, sleeping, or talking softly. The quiet hum of the plane was soothing. The young flight attendant came near again, ready to offer drinks. She was polite, but still did not recognize Sundar. He realized this was a simple moment of life, where his identity did not matter. For now, he was just a traveler like anyone else. Sundar thought about how sometimes being unknown could be a relief. Not everyone wanted to be famous all the time. He'd like this chance to be quiet and normal. As the plane flew on, Sundar relaxed and prepared for the rest of his journey. He felt calm, ready to face the busy days ahead. Little did he know, a small moment was about to happen that would make the flight more interesting, a moment that no one expected, and one that would teach everyone something about respect and humility. Sure, here's the expanded part 2 of the story. Sundar Pichai is humiliated by flight attendant. She didn't know who he is, in simple, clear English, about 1,300 words. Engaging and respectful. The young flight attendant was new to her job. She had started just a few weeks ago and was still learning how to serve passengers well. She wanted to do her best, but sometimes the work was fast and hard. On this flight, she had many passengers to take care of, and she felt a little tired. When she first saw Sundar Pichai, she thought he looked like a quiet businessman. He was sitting alone, calm and polite. She did not know who he was. He was not famous to her. She had not heard his name before, and he did not have any special signs that would tell her he was important. As she walked down the aisle with her tray of meals, she called out loudly, "Chicken or vegetarian? Chicken or vegetarian?" It was tired and spoke quickly, trying to finish her work fast. When she reached Sundar, she looked at him and said in a casual tone, "Hey sir, what do you want to eat? Chicken or vegetarian?" Sundar smiled politely and said, "Vegetarian, please." The flight attendant nodded and quickly moved on. Her tone was not rude, but it was a little sharp. She was busy and a bit distracted, so she did not speak as gently as she might have if she had more time. Some passengers nearby noticed how she spoke to Sundar and looked at him with surprise. They saw the young attendant was a bit rough in her way, but they did not know why. Sundar noticed the tone, too, but he did not say anything. He understood that the flight attendant was working hard and might be tired. He did not want to make a problem. He was used to dealing with many kinds of people and situations in his life, so this small thing did not upset him. As the flight went on, the young attendant continued her work. She moved quickly, serving drinks, helping people with questions, and cleaning up. She smiled at passengers when she could. Mostly she kept her mind on the many tasks she had to do. Sundar looked around the cabin again. Some passengers were talking softly. Others were reading books or watching movies on their screens. The plane was quiet, except for the gentle sound of the engines and the occasional announcement from the pilot. Suddenly, flight attendant called out to Sundar again. "Sir, your vegetarian meal is ready. Please enjoy." She placed the tray in front of him quickly and moved to the next passenger. Sundar thanked her quietly and started to eat. The food was good enough, and he ate slowly, enjoying the calm. Time near Sundar, some other passengers whispered to each other. One man looked at Sundar with a curious expression. He had heard of Sundar Pichai before, and was surprised to see him in economy class. The man smiled quietly and whispered to his wife, "Isn't that Sundar Pichai, the CEO of Google?" His wife looked closely and nodded. "Yes, it looks like him. I can't believe he is flying like this." The man nodded and watched Sundar with respect. He admired how Sundar was calm and humble, not trying to show off or demand special treatment. Meanwhile, the young flight attendant was unaware of who Sundar really was. She was busy and did not notice the whispers or the looks from other passengers. As the flight continued, a small problem happened. A passenger a few rows ahead accidentally dropped a heavy bag in the aisle. It fell with a loud thud, and some people looked up. The flight attendant quickly walked over to help. She picked up the bag and asked the passenger if they were okay. She smiled warmly and helped the passenger secure the bag in the overhead compartment. Sundar saw this act of kindness and thought about the hard work the flight attendants did. They helped many people every day and made travel easier for strangers they'd never met before. He thought about the young flight attendant again. She was tired and still learning, but she worked hard. Sundar felt respect for her, even if she did not know who he was. A little later, the flight attendant returned to Sundar's seat with a drink. She offered a bottle of water and said, "Here, sir, please drink this." Sundar smiled and thanked her quietly. She smiled back, but still did not speak more gently. It was clear she was in a hurry to finish her work. Sundar noticed other passengers watching the small interaction. Some smiled kindly, others looked curious. The flight was peaceful, but something small was growing in the air. The flight attendants' casual way of speaking was not meant to be rude, but it made Sundar feel a little like he was just another unknown person, not someone special. At the same time, the passengers around began to realize that the man in the seat was not just any traveler. Slowly, the news spread quietly among them. One passenger, who was good with technology and read news online, recognized Sundar Pichai from a recent interview. He whispered to the passenger next to him, "That's Sundar Pichai, the CEO of Google. Look at how normal he is. He is just like us." The other passenger smiled and said, "Yes, and the flight attendant does not even know who he is. That is strange." The passengers began to talk softly among themselves. Some were surprised. They expected that someone like Sundar would fly in luxury and be treated differently. Others thought it was good that he flew like everyone else. The young flight attendant continued to serve food and drinks without knowing she was talking to one of the world's most important tech leaders. Sundar remained calm and polite through all of this. He did not show any anger or frustration. He understood that people do not always know everything. In fact, Sundar thought this situation was a reminder for himself and everyone else. It was a chance to remember that respect and kindness should not depend on who someone is or how famous they are. The plane flew on smoothly. Outside the window, the sky was bright and full of clouds. Inside, the small moments between the passengers and crew created a story that no one would forget. Little did anyone know the moment when the flight attendant would realize who Sundar really was coming soon. And with that, things would change quickly. As the flight moved forward, the cabin settled into a calm rhythm. Passengers relaxed in their seats, some reading, some chatting quietly, and others resting with their eyes closed. Sundar Pichai sat quietly, watching the clouds outside his window. He felt a sense of peace in the quiet hum of the plane. Despite his busy life, this simple moment reminded him that everyone shares similar experiences. Nearby, some passengers whispered to each other about the man they believed to be Sundar Pichai. Their voices were soft, careful not to disturb others. They spoke about his success, his calm demeanor, and how unusual it was to see someone so important flying without any special treatment. One young woman took out her phone and took a quick photo, hoping to share the moment with her friends later. The flight attendant, still unaware of Sundar's identity, continued her work. She moved quickly down the aisle, checking on passengers and offering drinks. Her face showed signs of tiredness, but she kept smiling politely. She was focused on doing her job well, even if it was sometimes difficult to keep up with all the tasks. Suddenly, passenger 2 rows ahead leaned over and whispered something to a friend. The friend's eyes widened in surprise. "I just checked online," he said softly. "That really is Sundar Pichai." News spread quietly like wildfire. Passengers glanced at Sundar with renewed interest and respect. Some smiled at him warmly. Others gave subtle nods of admiration. It was a rare chance to see someone so famous in such a normal setting. Meanwhile, the young flight attendant finished serving the row and turned to walk back. As she passed Sundar, a fellow passenger whispered to her, "That's Sundar Pichai, the CEO of Google." The flight attendant stopped in her tracks. She looked surprised, her eyes wide as she stared at Sundar. For the first time, she saw him differently. The man she had spoken to casually, even a little sharply, was one of the most important people in the world. A wave of embarrassment rushed over her. She realized that she had spoken without respect to someone who deserved kindness and honor. Her heart beat faster as she felt the weight of her mistake. Sundar noticed her hesitation and looked up. He saw the change in her expression and understood what was happening. He gave her a small, gentle smile to ease her embarrassment. The flight attendant took a deep breath and approached Sundar's seat. She spoke quietly but sincerely. "Sir, I am so sorry. I did not know who you were before. I didn't mean to be disrespectful. Please forgive me." Sundar looked at her calmly and replied kindly, "There is no need to apologize. You are doing your job. I understand how busy you are." Her eyes filled with relief as she heard his words. She smiled gratefully and said, "Thank you for being so understanding." At that moment, the passengers nearby noticed the exchange. They saw the flight attendant's apology and Sundar's graciousness. It was a touching moment of humility and respect between two people from very different lives. Some passengers whispered to each other about how kind Sundar was. They admired how he handled the situation calmly, without anger or pride. Others thought about how easy it was to forget to show respect when we don't know who someone really is. The flight attendant returned to her duties with a lighter heart. She served the remaining passengers with more care and warmth. Now knowing who Sundar was, she treated him with the honor he deserved. Sundar continued to watch the clouds outside, feeling grateful for this simple moment of kindness and understanding. He thought about how important it was to treat everyone with respect, no matter their job or status. The flight moved on smoothly. The sun began to set, casting a warm glow through the windows. The sky was painted with soft colors of orange and pink, creating a beautiful scene. Passengers settled in for the last part of the journey. Some chatted quietly, sharing stories. Others prepared for landing by putting away their devices and fastening their seatbelts. Sundar closed his laptop and leaned back in his seat. He felt calm and ready for the next steps in his busy life. But he also felt thankful for the small moments of human connection on this ordinary flight. As the plane prepared to descend, the flight attendant came by one last time to thank Sundar for his kindness. She said softly, "It has been a pleasure serving you, sir. I wish you a safe trip." Sundar smiled warmly and said, "Thank you, and thank you for your hard work today." The flight attendant nodded and moved on, a smile on her face. The plane touched down gently at its destination. Passengers gathered their belongings and prepared to leave. Sundar stood up calmly, ready to continue his journey. Outside the plane, the city lights twinkled in the evening. Sundar felt a quiet happiness. The flight had been more than just a trip, it had been a lesson in humility, kindness, and respect. This simple story of a CEO and a young flight attendant reminded everyone on board and later many others who heard about it that behind every role and title, there are people who deserve respect and understanding. After the plane landed, the passengers slowly started to gather their belongings. The cabin was filled with soft murmurs of people getting ready to leave. Sundar Pichai remained calm and collected as he packed his small backpack and laptop bag. He had a few more hours before his next meeting, but he knew this flight was an important part of his day, not just for travel, but for a lesson he would carry with him. The young flight attendant had taken a moment after the apology to collect herself. She was still feeling a mix of emotions, embarrassment, relief, and gratitude. She had been worried about how Sundar might react after her earlier behavior, but his calm and kind response had surprised her in the best way. As the passengers moved towards the exit, the flight attendant quietly approached Sundar one last time. She spoke softly but sincerely. "Sir, I want to thank you again for your patience and understanding. I'm new to this job, and sometimes I forget how important it is to treat everyone with kindness." Sundar smiled gently and replied, "Thank you for your honesty. We all make mistakes, but what matters is how we respond. You showed courage by apologizing." She nodded, feeling warmth in her chest. "I will remember this lesson forever. It's not just about serving food or drinks, but about respect and kindness." Sundar's eyes reflected a quiet wisdom. That is true. Every person, no matter their role, deserves respect. When we treat others well, the world becomes a better place. The flight attendant smiled brightly. Thank you, sir. You're a great example. Sundar shook her hand warmly before turning to leave the plane. He walked down the aisle slowly, greeting a few passengers along the way with a small nod or smile. Some passengers who had witnessed the apology whispered softly among themselves, touched by the humility shown by both Sundar and the flight attendant. Once outside, Sundar stepped into the cool evening air. The city lights shimmered around him, and the hum of the airport filled the night. He took a deep breath and felt a sense of calm purpose. On his way to the taxi stand, Sundar thought about the simple moments that often go unnoticed. The hard work of the flight attendants, the kindness of strangers, and the power of a sincere apology. These small actions, he realized, held great meaning. He remembered the young flight attendant's face, the mix of nervousness and honesty. It reminded him that everyone is learning and growing, no matter their age or position. The way she faced her mistake and made it right was a powerful lesson in courage. At the same time, Sundar thought about his own role. As a leader of a global company, he had many responsibilities. But moments like this reminded him to stay humble, to treat others with kindness, and to never forget his own humanity. The story of this flight quickly began to spread quietly among the passengers. Some shared it on social media, telling friends and family about the CEO who flew an economy and handled a tricky moment with grace. Others talked about the young flight attendant, who apologized sincerely and learned a valuable lesson. The story inspired many people. It reminded them that respect and kindness are important in everyday life, whether you are famous or not. Showed how understanding and humility can bring people together, even in unexpected places, like an airplane cabin. For the young flight attendant, this experience changed her view of her job and the people she served. She felt proud to be part of something bigger than herself. She promised to always treat others with care and respect, no matter who they were. Sundar's journey continued with meetings, presentations, and busy days ahead. But he carried with him the memory of that flight, a simple yet meaningful reminder. That greatness is not only in what you achieve, but also in how you treat others. As he moved forward, he thought about sharing this story with his team. He wanted to encourage them to remember the value of kindness and humility in their own work and lives, in a world filled with challenges and competition. Sundar believed that these small acts of respect and understanding could make a big difference. They build trust, create strong relationships, and help everyone feel valued. The flight attendant, too, found strength in the experience. She worked harder each day to be patient, kind, and attentive. She smiled more and listened carefully to passengers' needs. Her confidence grew, and so did her love for her job. This story, simple yet powerful, became a quiet lesson for all who heard it. It showed that no matter where you come from or who you are, everyone deserves respect. It reminded people that a small act of kindness can change a day, a heart, and sometimes even a life. Sundar Pichai's story did not end when he left the plane. In fact, it was just the beginning of a tale that touched many hearts far beyond the airport. After that quiet flight, news of the small but meaningful moment began to spread quietly. It was not a headline in big newspapers at first, but it traveled through whispers among people who had been on that flight, and later through social media posts shared by passengers who had witnessed what happened. People were surprised to learn that Sundar, a powerful and famous CEO, chose to fly in economy class like a regular traveler. They admired his humility and calmness during the flight. But what touched them most was how he handled the situation with the young flight attendant, who had not known who he was. Instead of getting upset or angry, Sundar showed kindness and understanding. He accepted her apology without blame, showing a deep respect for her as a person. This simple act became a powerful lesson for many. It reminded people that everyone has feelings and deserves respect, no matter their job or status. It also showed that sometimes small moments can teach us the biggest lessons. For the young flight attendant, the experience changed her life. She talked about the flight with her family and friends, telling them how she had unknowingly spoken to one of the most important people in the world. She shared how nervous and embarrassed she felt when she realized who Sundar was, but also how grateful she was for his kindness. She promised herself that, from that day on, she would always treat every passenger with care and respect, no matter who they were. She wanted to remember the lessons Sundar had given her, that kindness and humility are more important than titles or fame. Sundar returned to his busy life, traveling to meetings and working hard to lead his company. But he kept that flight in his mind. It was a reminder that no matter how high someone rises in the world, staying humble and kind is the true mark of greatness. He also shared the story with his close team, encouraging them to treat everyone with respect and to find lessons in everyday moments. He believed that success is not only about achievements but also about how people treat each other. The passengers who had been on the flight often spoke about what they saw. Some said it made them think about their own behavior and how they treated others. Others shared the story to remind their friends that every person deserves kindness. The story of Sundar, the flight attendant, became a quiet symbol of respect and humanity. It showed that behind every face is a person with hopes, fears, and feelings. It reminded people that a simple apology can heal and a calm response can inspire. In a world full of rush and stress, this moment on a plane became a gentle reminder to slow down, to listen, and to be kind. For Sundar Pichai, it was just one flight among many. But for those who witnessed it, and for the young flight attendant who learned an important lesson, it became a story they would never forget, a story about respect, humility, and the power of kindness that can change lives in the most unexpected ways. And so, life moved on, but the lesson stayed. Kindness matters. Every person is worthy of respect, no matter where they are or who they are.